Hey everyone, it's Dr. RAMANI. Welcome back to this YouTube channel on narcissism and narcissistic relationships and healing from them. One thing I want to reflect on is, as we start this video, is I want you to think about the things you've done in your life to stay attached to narcissistic people. It could be your parent, it could be a partner, it could be a friend. Just even if you make a note, drop it in the comments if you want. What are the things you've done to stay attached to a narcissistic person? In this video, we're going to take one of them on. So as you learn more and more, as you do on this channel, as you learn more and more about narcissism, it can be sort of paradoxical, okay? Interestingly, once it all clicks for you and it all makes sense, the pattern, their pattern of behavior, it's something you can't unsee. And so it can even seem sort of elementary, right? But then there's a risk that you will end up criticizing yourself like, oh my God, this was so clear. Oh, why didn't I get this sooner? You get it when you get it, folks. And the fact is that while you were really in it, you were trying to figure out workarounds just to survive, right? So the challenging part of any narcissistic or antagonistic relationship, or relationship, honestly, with any toxic person, is that in that relationship, like all human relationships, if we believe, and we did with the narcissistic folks, if we believe we care about the person or love the person, or we need the person, certainly as would be the case with a parent, we are attachment-seeking creatures. It's a survival thing. In an ideal world, we're attaching to a healthy individual and it goes smoothly and we feel safe and we can be our true selves and it grows and it blossoms and yay, wonderful, it's what we dream of. That is not what happens in a narcissistic relationship. Because no matter what, whatever the health is of this person we're trying to attach to, we're going to do whatever it takes to attach, healthy or not healthy. And we don't want to be rejected or abandoned. Even as young children, we slowly figure it out through painful trial and error, what works with a caregiver. And when they're narcissistic, we learn, say this, don't say that, do this, don't do that, feel this, don't feel that. And we try and we retry. And the crazy part of a narcissistic relationship is even that it's not, even though it's not consistent, the very thing we said a week ago that wasn't a problem, it's a problem now. Again, these relationships are deeply inconsistent. So it becomes difficult to attach. But let me tell you the one thing that is never going to fly in a narcissistic relationship. And that is to be competitive with them. It's a funny balance. So let's say if you're a kid and you're good at something. And because you're good at something, that gets the parent validation. That parent may actually focus on that talent of yours. You're doing well as a chance for them to shine. They get secondary or even primary narcissistic supply from your success. And this would be like a proverbial stage parent or a pageant parent, or anyone who pushes their child brutally to be their best. And this would be like a proverbial stage parent or pageant parent, or anyone who pushes their child intensely, sometimes even brutally, to be the best. Now, to the world, it looks like the parent is devoted to the child, but they're actually more devoted to the supply they're getting from the child. And if the child is outgrowing the activity or wants to pursue other things, forget about it. The parent will shame, guilt, manipulate the child, silent treatment, you have no follow through, you're a failure, you know the drill. That is the one time, honestly, when you're doing something that gets them supply, that the narcissistic person will allow your talent to shine, when they are a beneficiary of what comes from that. Now, in adulthood, if you have a talent, they may allow it because if they're getting money or a lifestyle or even notice and fame for it, they may do it. But people in narcissistic relationships won't necessarily feel that the narcissistic person is cultivating their talent or even celebrating it as much as they're sopping up the benefits, and may even continue to get their passive-aggressive barbs and digs and criticisms, anything to leave you feeling small, even as you are crushing it. But that's not what happens. That's what usually happens. In most cases, the only way to stay attached in a narcissistic relationship is to stay small so they can be big. And staying small, or what I would call it self-limiting ourselves, is a part of denying our true selves because we don't want to be our whole selves in these relationships. without being shut out or them shaming us or being made to feel that we're the narcissistic, exhibitionistic ones, right? So some examples may be that you have a business idea that you want to try out, or you want to change something about your appearance, a haircut or something, or develop a new talent, or build out a new social group in your life, or go back to school. Anything that would mean that you are carving out some time and space for yourself to grow, and to do so in a way that is somewhat independent from them. If you do that, they will shut it down at every turn, initially perhaps by making fun of it, or shaming you, or calling you an attention seeker, or why do you always have to be the center of attention? You think you're so important. Now, of course, none of that is true, so it doesn't feel good, because these relationships already chip away at our sense of self, and we doubt ourselves and blame ourselves constantly. And so what they're saying, we think, well, this seems plausible. Maybe I am narcissistic because I want to start my own business, or I want to write a blog, and maybe I am just an attention seeker because I am exercising and getting into shape, or maybe I am a fool for wanting to waste this time trying to learn this musical instrument as an adult, or I'm wasting money going back to school. They get into your head, right? Whatever it may be, you are made to feel ridiculous or bad or foolish. And the silent writing on the wall is that keep doing this and you will be viewed in this new way, which isn't truly you. And if you want this relationship to keep going, then you better tone it back. No new future for you. And also keep in mind that many times when any of us start to want to start doing something new, we often need a little support. Maybe we'll need to spend some money on it. Maybe we'll need some help like childcare. Maybe our schedule will shift. And the narcissistic people will tantrum, not help. And that all of that together can also make it a virtual impossibility to try or do something new. To stay attached in a narcissistic relationship, we do have to give up on ourselves. It's the central rule of all of these relationships. For it to work, you can't be your true you. You have to be the version of you that works as supply for them and allows them to feel in control and power. It's really that simple. The fawn response, a trauma response that keeps us safe, is the myriad involuntary ways we go along, not consciously, but to be safe, to stay attached. And self-limiting can be partially filed in that drawer, the unprocessed, reflexive, not aware holding back of yourself or giving in. Again, it's a nervous system response that ultimately allows the relationship to stay in place and gives us the sense of safety, and we are safer because they're less likely to rage or threaten abandonment or invalidate us. But over time, it also reflects exhaustion. We give in to keep households running, and of an accumulation of feeling, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. Who the hell do I even think I am for thinking about starting a business, trying this, being this, going back to school? Ultimately, limiting ourselves becomes how we can stay in a relationship. And even after the narcissistic relationship is over, we will have built within us an association, a connection, an association that's self-limiting and holding ourselves back and not succeeding and not aspiring. That's how we show love. When you look at women's magazines from the 1950s, that message is spread all over the pages. Make sure your husband knows that he has the answers. That kind of ideology. That any woman who is thinking big or aspirational or even somewhat independent thoughts, it was treated at that time as though it was a disease that would disrupt society. And women who did that were treated as a problem by the world, and still are in many places and cases. Even now, we talk about love and relationships as sacrifice. And somehow, sacrificing ourselves and our aspirations become part of that. I have never, in my decades of doing this work, seen a person in a narcissistic relationship not limit themselves. It may be as simple as holding themselves back. You're in one of these relationships and you hold yourself back, even when you know the right answer. Even while the narcissistic person is blah, blah, blahing like an a-hole that doesn't know what they're talking about. Or you're someone who has a gift that you don't share about, or education that you achieved, art you made, things you did. It's as though that if the narcissistic person in your life knew that you were allowing your talents to shine, that you knew that there would be hell to pay, or at least humiliation, shaming, and passive aggression to endure. I was talking with a woman who had been in a long-term narcissistic relationship. And I'd noted she'd gotten into making some small little arts and crafts. And this is a woman who's absolutely, the time I've known her, she's been really brilliant. But all of it was preempted because she came from a very, almost like overly conservative, traditional, controlling family that were embedded in a controlling culture. She married someone who was narcissistic. And her talent was snuffed out in real time. But she would try and exert her creative self through little projects that honestly nobody would see because her narcissistic husband was also really isolating. And so the tragedy was that she couldn't even take ownership of these little things she was making. And I remember she was telling me, and I had once even witnessed, a guest had come to her house and praised her on her crafts. And she immediately disparaged herself. She said, oh, it's just nonsense and junk. I'm wasting money and I'm being silly with a glue gun. It was absolutely heartbreaking to witness that. The stupid husband was nowhere to be seen. But that persecuting, I guess somewhat protective voice was a constant for her, a sick legacy of a lifetime. Now, I was so happy to see that the woman found these creative outlets in her life, but it sat with me a long time after I left, that even receiving the lightest praise about these things she was making felt dangerous to her. Listen, that this YouTube channel frankly even exists is nothing short of a miracle. Because every time I make a video, the singular voice in my head is, who the hell do you think you are, Ramani? How dare you? You're being ridiculous. I still feel that. I see the benefits. I hear from people that there are benefits to people who need this information. And it's always been my aspiration to teach people about this, to set them free. This became a way to do it. It's never going to feel comfortable for me. And I long ago learned how to drown out the voices of the narcissistic people most of the time and no longer feel that attachment pull. But I am much, much older now, and a lot of my life got wasted. I don't want that to happen to you. Self-limiting is not love, and yet it may be the only way to stay attached. I would argue that the only way a narcissistic relationship works is if we clip our wings and we turn into flightless birds and leave the narcissistic person feeling as though they have all the power. That's why the process of individuation is so important to healing. So you have to reflect on the ways you limited yourself to stay attached and that you still may do. What did you give up in yourself, and what do you still want to try in this life? Folks, we get one real ride on this carousel called life. You got to stand up and grab the brass ring. Attachment, I know, is crucial to survival, but ultimately, living authentically is crucial to self-actualization, which is a far higher calling. If you are self-limiting to make a relationship work, that is not love. That is subjugation, and at best, it's survival. And do you know what has happened to most flightless birds? They go extinct. So let's not do that to ourselves. Unlimit yourself. Just don't let the narcissistic person know. And let whatever your striving is, your unlimiting of yourself, let that become your beautiful secret. Thanks again.